My name is Elaine Spencer. I'm 53 years old. At 10:27 on a gray Saturday morning, I walked into my mother's funeral and found my name on a folded place card in the back row. Not the second row, not near the aisle, not beside the casket where my mother's favorite white roses were arranged in a soft half circle beneath her photograph. The back row, between my cousin's ex-husband, who had not seen my mother in 8 years, and a great aunt who thought I was my sister. The card said, Elaine Spencer. Black ink. Plain font. No mistake. I stood there in the entryway of Grace Covenant Church, with my coat still buttoned, my hands wrapped around the small navy folder that held the obituary draft I had written, the medication list I had lived by, and the final hospital bracelet I had taken off my mother's wrist after she died. My sister, Denise, stood near the front in a fitted black dress, greeting people like she had personally carried grief into the building and arranged it by floral height. She saw me. She smiled, not warmly, triumphantly. Then she looked away and touched the shoulder of someone from Mom's Bridge Club. "Thank you so much for coming," she said, voice trembling in that polished way people use when they have rehearsed sadness for an audience. I had not slept more than 3 hours in 2 nights. My mother, Margaret Spencer, had died on Wednesday at 4:18 in the morning after 7 years of heart failure, kidney complications, hospital admissions, rehab stays, medication changes, walker adjustments, oxygen deliveries, insurance calls, specialist appointments, emergency room nights, and one final week in hospice, where every breath felt like something being negotiated with heaven. I had been there. Every appointment, every hospital night, every hard morning. I learned the difference between swelling from fluid retention and swelling from standing too long. I learned which nurses would answer quickly, and which ones needed a second call. I learned how to crush pills into applesauce without making Mom feel like a child. I learned how to read the tiny shifts in her face when pain arrived before she admitted it. I learned that caregiving is not one beautiful sacrifice. It is 10,000 small surrenders no one applauds, because they happen in kitchens, bathrooms, pharmacies, waiting rooms, and dark bedrooms at 3 in the morning. My sister Denise lived 23 minutes away. She visited when there was an audience. Birthdays, holidays, the occasional hospital photo where she would lean close to Mom's bed, take a selfie, and post. Spending time with my beautiful mama, cherish every moment. Then she would leave before the doctor came. Denise had not changed Mom's sheets after night sweats. Denise had not cleaned the bathroom after Mom missed the toilet because the diuretic hit too fast. Denise had not held a plastic basin under Mom's chin after a medication reaction. Denise had not spent 2 hours on hold with Medicare because a wheelchair claim was denied for a missing code. Denise had not sat beside Mom during the cardiologist appointment when he said, gently, "We are reaching the limits of what more intervention can do." But Denise had ordered the funeral flowers, so apparently she believed that made her the chief mourner. I looked down at the back row place card again. For a moment, grief and humiliation collided so hard, I almost turned around and walked out. Then I heard Mom's voice in my memory. "Elaine, never leave a room where the truth still has work to do." So I stayed. I walked to the back row and sat exactly where my sister had placed me. The church smelled like lilies, old hymnals, and raincoats. People whispered. Organ music played softly. At the front, Mom's framed photo stood beside the urn. She had chosen cremation years before, saying, quote, "I refuse to be buried in shoes I can't complain about." That was my mother. Even dying did not make her sentimental in obvious ways. Her photo showed her at 78, before the worst of the illness took her color, sitting on my porch in a pale lavender sweater, laughing at something I had said. I had taken that picture. Denise had used it in the program without asking. Of course she had. My cousin Beth turned from the row ahead, saw me, and frowned. "Elaine," she whispered, "why are you back here?" I looked toward the front. "Ask Denise." Beth's face tightened. She didn't. She did. Before Beth could answer, Denise walked down the aisle toward me. Her heels clicked on the church floor like punctuation. She leaned close. "Elaine, please don't make this about seating." I looked at her. "Good morning, Denise." Her smile hardened. I had to organize things quickly. Immediate family is up front. I let that sit. Immediate family. I said, I am Mom's daughter. Don't start. There it was. The family phrase that meant, do not name what I am doing while I am doing it. Denise whispered, the front rows are for people participating in the service. I wrote the obituary. I edited it. You removed the part about her work at the library. It was too long. You removed the part about her grandchildren. You don't have children, Elaine. I wrote about yours. Her face flushed. This is not the time. No, it's exactly the time you chose. She straightened. Just sit quietly, please. For Mom. For Mom, the woman whose oxygen tubing I untangled from chair legs. The woman whose hands I warmed. The woman whose final words to me were, did you feed the cat? Because even at the edge of death, she cared whether something helpless was cared for. For Mom. I placed the navy folder on my lap. I will sit quietly, I said. Denise looked relieved. Mistake. Quiet is not the same as erased. At 10:59, Pastor William approached the pulpit. He was a kind man in his 60s, with silver hair, heavy glasses, and the deep fatigue of someone who had stood beside many families when their private truths became public arrangements. He looked across the church. His eyes found me in the back row. Something changed in his face. Not surprise. Recognition. Then he looked at Denise in the front row. Then back at me. Before the first hymn, he stepped away from the pulpit and walked down the center aisle. Everyone watched. Denise turned, confused. Pastor William stopped at my row. Elaine, he said softly, but in a voice that carried. Yes? Your mother left instructions. My hands tightened on the folder. Denise stood halfway from the front row. What instructions? Pastor William did not look at her. He looked at me. She asked that her letter to you be read before the service begins. The church went still. Every whisper stopped. My heart began to pound. Pastor William held up a cream envelope. On the front, in my mother's careful, shaky handwriting, was my name, Elaine, under it. Read first. Denise began walking toward us. Pastor, I don't think. He turned then, just enough. Margaret was very clear. Denise stopped. The room changed. Because my mother, dead 3 days, had just entered her own funeral with instructions. Pastor William looked at me. May I? I could not speak. So I nodded. He opened the envelope and began to read. My Elaine, if you are hearing this from the back of the church, then your sister has been exactly herself, and I apologize for leaving you one more mess to sit through. A sound moved through the congregation. Not laughter exactly, not yet. Shock wearing church clothes. Denise's face went white. Pastor William continued. I know who stayed. I know who counted pills, argued with insurance, slept in chairs, learned the nurses' names, brought the good soup, and pretended not to cry in the hallway. I know who held my hand when breathing became work. It was you. The letters on the page blurred in my vision, but Pastor William's voice stayed steady. Do not let anyone place you behind people who visited my life, only when there was cake, a camera, or a crowd. Come to the front, Elaine. This service does not begin until my daughter who stayed is seated where she belongs. The church was silent. Pastor William lowered the letter. Then he held out his hand to me. I stood. Not quickly, not dramatically. I stood because my mother had saved my seat from beyond the grave. And while every person in that church watched, I walked from the back row to the front. Past Denise, past the cousins, past the bridge club ladies, past the flower arrangements my sister had ordered. I sat in the chair beside my mother's photograph, the chair that should have been mine from the beginning. This is that story. Before I tell you how my sister learned that seating me in the back row could not erase 7 years of caregiving when Mom had left a letter naming the truth, tell me where you are watching or listening from, and what time it is there. I always wonder who hears stories like this while remembering the person who did the hard, hidden care, then watch the loudest relative try to stand closest to the casket. And if you connect with stories about women who were dismissed, erased, betrayed, and quietly took their power back, like and subscribe to Ultimate Revenge. Some women do not fight over funeral seating. Some women let Mom's final letter move them to the front. I was not the favorite child. Not in the obvious way. My mother loved both of us. But Denise had sparkle. That was the family word. Sparkle. Denise was beautiful, social, dramatic, charming, and very good at making adults feel chosen. She knew how to tilt her head when asking for help, how to cry without looking messy, how to make a mistake sound like an adventure someone else should clean up. I was steady. Steady is useful. Sparkle is adored. When we were children, Denise forgot permission slips, lost lunch money, broke curfew, cried over math, and borrowed clothes without returning them. I remembered bus schedules, packed extra pencils, started dinner when Mom worked late, and learned early that being dependable meant people stopped asking whether you were tired. Dad died when I was 22. Heart attack. Sudden. One minute he was in the garage sorting fishing gear, the next he was gone before the ambulance arrived. Mom changed after that. Not all at once. But the house became quieter. She went back to work at the library after 2 weeks, because Bills did not care about grief. I moved back home for a year to help. Denise, then 19, said she could not handle the sadness and spent more time at friends' houses. Mom defended her. Everyone grieves differently. That sentence is true. It can also become a hiding place. I stayed. That became my role. Elaine stays. Denise shines. Years passed. Denise married a contractor named Brad, had 2 children, bought a house with an open floor plan, and became the kind of woman who posted inspirational quotes about family while never answering family calls after 8 at night. I became an office manager for a pediatric practice, married briefly in my 30s, divorced quietly in my 40s, and moved into a small townhouse 10 minutes from Mom. My marriage ended because my husband Eric wanted a woman with fewer responsibilities. He did not say it that plainly. He said, "Your mother is always in our life." He said, "Denise needs to step up." He said, "You act like you're the only one who can do things." Maybe I did, because often I was. After the divorce, Mom said, "I'm sorry, honey." I said, "It wasn't only you." She said, "No, but I was part of the weight." That was my mother. She could see herself clearly when she was brave enough to look. Her first major health scare came at 74. Shortness of breath, swollen ankles, fatigue she kept calling getting old until she nearly fainted at the grocery store. Heart failure. Manageable, the doctor said. At first. Medication, diet changes, daily weights, fluid restrictions, cardiology follow-ups, compression socks. Mom hated all of it. "I raised 2 daughters and survived your father's snoring for 30 years, she said. "Now I'm being defeated by salt." I made charts, of course I did. Weight, blood pressure, medication times, symptoms, questions for doctors. Denise visited with flowers the first week and said, "You're so good at this stuff, Elaine." I knew then, not fully, enough. The symbolic object in this story was a yellow legal pad. Mom started it after her second hospital stay. I found her one morning at the kitchen table, writing in blocky handwriting. "What are you doing?" Leaving instructions. For what? For people who claimed they didn't know. On the top page, she had written, "Things Elaine knows because she pays attention." Under it, "Cardiologist prefers morning calls. Blue pill before breakfast, not after. Do not let Denise bring lilies. They make me sneeze." I laughed so hard I cried. Mom looked pleased. Over time, the legal pad became part medical notes, part diary, part witness statement. Sometimes, she wrote practical things. Oxygen company account number. Insurance appeal date. Pharmacy closes early Sunday. Sometimes she wrote truths. Denise came today for 20 minutes, talked mostly about Brad's promotion. Elaine slept in the chair again. Pretended she was comfortable. I hate needing help. I hate that Elaine is the one paying for Denise's absence. I did not read all of it then. I knew it was there. Mom showed me some pages. Others, she kept folded. The yellow legal pad sat in the drawer beside her recliner. By year 3, Mom's health had narrowed our lives. Hers, physically. Mine, logistically. No spontaneous plans, no long trips, no phone off, no ignoring unknown numbers, because every unknown number might be a hospital, pharmacy, doctor's office, home health agency, or neighbor saying mom's porch light was still on. I became fluent in medical bureaucracy. I learned to say, please document that refusal in the chart. I learned to ask, what are the risks if we do nothing? I learned to bring snacks, phone chargers, a sweater, and a list of medications printed in large font. I learned that hospital chairs are designed by people who have never loved anyone overnight. Denise learned visiting hours. Barely. She came when mom was alert. When hair was brushed. When photos were acceptable. She brought scented lotions mom could not tolerate and then looked hurt when I asked her not to use them. She posted, "Mom is a fighter." Mom hated that. "I am not a boxer," she said. "I am an old woman with bad valves." Denise said, "It's inspirational." Mom said, "So is telling the truth." Denise did not post that. The first real rupture came during mom's third hospitalization. I had been awake for 30 hours. Mom had fluid in her lungs, confusion from low oxygen, and a nurse who was doing her best with too many patients. I texted Denise at 5:40 in the morning. "I need you to come sit with mom from noon to 4 so I can sleep and shower." She replied at 8:15. "I can't today. Madison has dance photos." Madison was her daughter. 17. The dance photos were at 4:30. I wrote, "I need 4 hours." Denise replied, "Elaine, I have kids. You don't understand scheduling." I stared at the phone from a vinyl hospital chair with my mother asleep beside me and thought, there it is. You don't have kids. The sentence people use to erase every form of caregiving that does not come with a birth certificate. I replied, "Mom is your mother too." She did not answer. That afternoon, a nurse named Rebecca found me crying in the family bathroom. She did not say be strong. She said, "Go home for 2 hours, I'll watch her." I never forgot that. Strangers sometimes understand what family refuses to. Denise came the next day with coffee and said, "You look awful." I said thank you. She took a photo with mom. Caption, "Sisters showing up for mom." I almost commented, "I did not, my mistake. Silence lets false stories set like concrete." Over the years, Denise became very good at visible daughterhood. She organized Mother's Day brunch once. At a restaurant mom could barely access with her walker. She bought matching Christmas pajamas for a photo mom was too tired to stand for. She ordered expensive floral arrangements for hospital rooms after I had already told her mom preferred space on the bedside table for water, tissues, and the call button. She told relatives, "We're taking it day by day." We. Such a small word, such a large theft. I was not perfect. Caregivers rarely are. I got irritated. I snapped sometimes. I once cried in my car because mom refused to take a shower and accused me of treating her like a patient. I once forgot to refill a prescription until the last minute and drove across town in a storm to find a pharmacy that had it. I once resented Denise so deeply that when she posted about being exhausted from family stress, I threw my phone onto the couch and scared the cat. Then I felt guilty. Then angry for feeling guilty. Caregiving makes you meet versions of yourself you would rather not introduce to guests. Mom saw those versions too. One morning after a brutal night, she said, "Elaine, you can be mad." "I'm not mad." "Don't lie to a dying woman, it's tacky." I laughed, despite myself. She continued, "You can love me and hate this." Tears filled my eyes. "I don't hate you." "I know. That's why I said this." She patted my hand. "You stayed. Staying is not always pretty." "No, it is not." The funeral planning began before mom died because mom insisted. She called it pre-cleaning the mess. She chose cremation, Grace Covenant Church. White roses, not lilies. Hymns, "Be Thou My Vision," and "It Is Well With My Soul." No slideshow longer than 3 minutes because, in her words, I have lived 81 years and refuse to be trapped in a PowerPoint after death. She wanted Pastor William. She wanted the lavender sweater photo. She wanted the obituary to mention the library, Dad, her grandchildren, her garden, and the fact that she once won a blue ribbon for peach preserves at the county fair and never let anyone forget it. She also wanted Denise and me not to fight. "I know," she said, "that may require divine intervention." I said, "Mom." She looked at me. "Promise you won't let her erase you." I was adjusting her blanket. I froze. "She won't?" "Yes, she will." I turned. Mom's eyes were clear that day. Tired. But clear. "She will be scared," Mom said. "And when Denise is scared, she decorates. She organizes. She performs. She moves people like furniture until she feels important again." I swallowed. "She loves you." "I know. She also avoids what costs her." I sat down. Mom continued. "I have written letters." "What letters?" "You'll know." "Mom?" "No. If I tell you, you'll try to manage everyone's feelings." I almost denied it. "Could not." She smiled faintly. "My Elaine, always carrying emotional furniture upstairs." I cried. She touched my hand. "Put it down when I go." I tried. But old habits are strong. When hospice began, Denise became attentive for exactly 2 days. She brought candles, asked about music, cried on Mom's bed until Mom whispered to me, "Is she grieving or auditioning?" I nearly choked. Then Denise got busy. Brad had a work trip. Madison had college visits. Her son Tyler had soccer playoffs. Her dog needed dental surgery. Life, apparently, scheduled itself around her availability. I was there. Hospice nurse visits. Morphine instructions. Mouth swabs. Skincare. Turning. Whispered prayers. The strange, sacred terror of counting breaths. On Mom's final night, rain tapped the window. The cat slept at the foot of the bed. I sat beside her holding her hand, the yellow legal pad on the bedside table, though she had not written in days. At 3:58 in the morning, her eyes opened. "Elaine." "I'm here." "Did you feed the cat?" I laughed and sobbed at once. "Yes." "Good." At 4:18, she was gone. I called Denise at 4:27. She answered groggy. "Elaine?" "Mom died." Silence. Then a wail. Real grief. "I will give her that." Denise loved Mom. She just did not love her in ways that required consistency. By 7 that morning, Denise had activated funeral home, flowers, phone calls, guest list, program design, food for reception. She arrived at Mom's house wearing black leggings, sunglasses, and command. We need to divide tasks. I was sitting at the kitchen table with Mom's mug still by the sink. "Okay. I'll handle the service." Mom left instructions. "I know, but someone has to coordinate." "I have the folder." She reached for it. I held it back. Her eyes narrowed. "Elaine, don't make this harder." "I'm not." "You're exhausted. Let me take over." "Take over, not help. Take over." I said, "We can do it together." She smiled. That smile. "Of course." Then she called the florist and ordered lilies. I corrected it. She changed the obituary. I corrected it. She scheduled the church meeting without telling me. I called Pastor William myself. He said, "Elaine, your mother left something with me." "What?" A pause. "Letters." My breath caught. She asked that I read one at the service. "To you. First." I closed my eyes. Of course she had. "She predicted this?" I asked. Pastor William sighed softly. "Your mother was very perceptive." "She was exhausted." "Both can be true." I asked if I could see the letter beforehand. He said, gently, "She asked me not to show anyone until the service." That was Mom too. She knew I might try to soften it. The morning of the funeral, I wore a black dress Mom liked because she said it made me look like a woman who owns a good pen. I pinned her small silver brooch to my collar. I brought the navy folder. I drove myself because I needed to leave if breathing became too hard. Then I found the back row place card. Denise had done exactly what Mom expected. She had seated herself, her husband, her children, Mom's bridge club president, Uncle Ray, and 2 cousins in the front rows. Me in the back. The daughter who stayed. The daughter with the pill chart memorized. The daughter whose car still had a hospital parking pass hanging from the mirror. Back row. But Mom's letter moved me. Not metaphorically. Physically. I walked to the front while people watched Denise's careful arrangement collapse under a dead woman's handwriting. When I sat beside Mom's photo, Pastor William continued reading. My Elaine. You will want to protect your sister from embarrassment. Do not. She needs to feel the weight of arranging appearances around an absence she created. You were not perfect. No caregiver is. You got tired. You got sharp. You cried in my bathroom and thought I did not hear. I heard. You also stayed. You learned the rhythms of my illness like a second language. You gave up weekends, sleep, vacations, dates, quiet, and the luxury of being only a daughter instead of a nurse, advocate, driver, scheduler, cook, and witness. I am sorry for the years you carried more than your share. I am proud of the way you carried it. Sit in the front, Elaine. Not because you need recognition, but because truth should not be seated behind convenience. Love. Mom. By the time Pastor William finished, I was crying so hard I could not see the program in my lap. The church was silent, except for muffled sobs. Denise stood frozen in the aisle where she had stopped. Her face was not angry now. It was stripped. That is the only word. Stripped of performance. Pastor William folded the letter. Then he said, Margaret also asked that we begin the service with gratitude for the daughter who cared for her body, her appointments and her days, and with grace for the daughter who is now learning what absence costs. Denise covered her mouth. No one moved. Then Pastor William began the prayer. I do not remember every word. I remember one sentence. Lord, teach us that love is not measured by who stands closest to the flowers, but by who stayed closest to the suffering. That sentence went through the church like a bell. I need to pause here for a second. If you have ever been the caregiver who did the appointments, the medication, the night shifts, the paperwork, the hard mornings, then watched someone else perform grief in the front row, you know what Elaine felt when that letter was read. It was not about attention. It was about the truth, finally refusing to sit quietly in the back. If this story is hitting close to home, leave a comment and tell me who really stayed in your family when care became inconvenient. And if you have not already, subscribe to Ultimate Revenge. The quiet part is over. The funeral continued. It was beautiful, painful, awkward, honest. All the things Mom had been brave enough to allow. My cousin Beth read scripture. Mom's former library coworker told a story about Mom sneaking extra books into children's backpacks because she knew their parents could not always get them to the library. Madison, Denise's daughter, read a poem and cried so hard I wanted to hold her, because children do not choose their parents. Blind spots. Pastor William spoke about Mom's humor, her stubborn faith, her peach preserves, her library years, and her deep belief that care was holy work when done without applause. Denise did not speak. She had planned to. Her name was in the program, A Remembrance, by Denise Caldwell. But after the letter, she sat beside Brad, with her hands clenched in her lap, staring at the floor. Part of me felt satisfaction. Part of me felt sorry for her. That is how family betrayal often feels. Not clean, not victorious. A bruise pressed under silk. At the graveside garden where Mom's ashes would be interred beside Dad's marker, Denise finally approached me. Elaine. I was holding the small urn because Pastor William had asked me to carry it from the church to the garden. Mom's final ride, she would have joked. I looked at my sister. What? Her eyes were red. I didn't know about the letter. I did not either. She shouldn't have done that publicly. I stared at her. You put me in the back row publicly. Her mouth trembled. I was trying to keep things organized. No, you were trying to make the room match the story you wanted. She looked away. I was grieving. So was I. You always act like you did everything. I did not have to act. She flinched. Good. Some truth should land. I softened only slightly. Denise, this is Mom's burial. I am not going to fight with you here. But do not ask me to protect you from the truth Mom chose to speak. She whispered. Everyone was looking at me. Yes. How do you think I felt? I almost laughed. Then I saw she genuinely did not hear herself. Denise, I said quietly, you are standing beside our mother's urn asking the sister you seated in the back to comfort you because people noticed. Her face crumpled. For once, no performance followed. Just realization. Maybe temporary. Maybe real. She stepped back. The interment was brief. Rain threatened, but did not fall. Pastor William prayed. I placed a white rose beside Mom's name. Denise placed one too. Our hands almost touched. Neither of us spoke. The reception was held in the church hall. Casseroles, coffee, ham biscuits, lemon bars. People approached me carefully. Some apologized without knowing exactly what for. Some said, "Your mother loved you so much." Some said, "We had no idea you did all that." I smiled politely. What could I say? You did not ask. You believed the posts. You thought care looked like flowers because the ugly parts were hidden? Mrs. Fulton from Mom's Bridge Club took my hand and said, "Your mother told us often, Elaine. We knew." That mattered, more than I expected. She did? Oh yes. She said, "Elaine is the one who knows where my socks are and why my cardiologist annoys me." I laughed through tears. That sounds like her. Mrs. Fulton leaned closer. She also said, "Denise visits like a parade, pretty, loud, and not useful in the rain." I almost dropped my coffee. Mom, even dead, still accurate. The yellow legal pad came to me after the service. Pastor William handed it over in a sealed plastic folder. "She left this with me last week," he said. "I held it like scripture. Did you read it?" "Only the pages she asked me to." "Are there more letters?" "Yes." My chest tightened. "She asked me to give you the pad first, then the attorney will contact you both about estate matters." Estate matters. I was too tired to process that. Denise saw the folder from across the room. Her eyes locked on it. But she did not approach. Good. That night, after everyone left, I went to Mom's house alone. Not Denise's house. Not my townhouse. Mom's house. It still smelled like her lotion, laundry detergent, and the faint medicinal scent of hospice supplies that had not yet been picked up. The cat, Jasper, yelled at me from the hallway as if I had personally failed his schedule. "I fed you," I told him. He yelled again. "Fair." I sat in Mom's recliner with the yellow legal pad. For an hour, I only held it. Then I opened it. The first pages were old notes I had seen. Medication lists. Doctor names. Insurance numbers. Then entries. Some funny. Some heartbreaking, some unbearable. Elaine thinks I don't know she eats crackers for dinner after long appointments. I know. Feed her better in heaven if possible. Denise came with tulips and left before the home health nurse arrived. Tulips are pretty. So is staying. I snapped at Elaine today. She cried in the laundry room. I hate this disease for making me cruel to the person helping me. Tell Elaine I saw everything. Tell Denise I loved her. Also tell her love without effort is still love, but it is not care. I cried until my face hurt. Then I found a page folded in half, on the outside. For after the funeral. I opened it. Elaine. If the seating went badly, forgive me for being right. I laughed and sobbed at the same time. The page continued. There will be estate noise. Do not let Denise turn guilt into entitlement. I have left the house to be sold and divided equally because I do not want you and Denise fighting over walls. But I have left you my savings account balance after final expenses. It is not enormous. It is not enough to repay 7 years. Nothing is. It is my acknowledgement. Use it for rest, not bills, not Denise. Rest, I mean it. Mom. I pressed the page to my chest. Use it for rest. I had forgotten rest could be something you used money for. The attorney called 2 days later. Mom's estate was simple. House sold, proceeds split equally between me and Denise. Personal items listed. Savings account. After expenses, to me. A letter to Denise. A smaller envelope, to each grandchild. Denise came to the attorney's office, wearing black, no makeup, and no sparkle. The attorney, Ms. Hale, read the estate summary. Denise's face tightened at the savings account. "How much?" she asked. Ms. Hale gave the number. $48,000 after funeral and medical expenses. Denise looked at me. "You knew?" "No." Ms. Hale handed Denise her letter. Denise opened it with shaking hands. She read silently. Her face changed slowly. Anger. Hurt. Shame. Then something softer. She folded the letter and placed it in her purse. I did not ask. Not then. Outside the office, she stopped me. Mom said I loved her like a daughter, who wanted to be seen loving her. I said nothing. She said I mistook visibility for presence. That sounded like Mom. Denise's eyes filled. She said it wasn't too late to become someone who stays, but it was too late to pretend I already had. I looked away. That one hurt even me. Denise whispered, "Do you hate me?" I thought about lying, then didn't. Some days, I did. She nodded, crying, "Do you now?" "I don't know yet." That was the truth. She accepted it. That surprised me. The months after Mom's death were strange. Caregiving ends abruptly. The habits do not. I woke at 5:30 for weeks, thinking I needed to check Mom's weight. I reached for my phone whenever unknown numbers called. I walked into grocery stores and automatically picked up low-sodium broth before remembering she did not need soup anymore. Freedom, when it arrives through death, does not feel like freedom at first. It feels like standing in a field after a house collapses. Open sky. Rubble everywhere. Denise tried to help at the house sale. At first, she overdid it. Organizing closets before asking. Deciding which furniture should be donated. Calling realtors. I stopped her. "Denise." "What?" "You are taking over again." Her mouth opened, then closed. She stepped back. "Tell me what to do." That was new, so I did. Specific tasks. Call utility companies. Sort your own childhood boxes. Ask before touching Mom's desk. Scan photos. Do not post anything without asking. She followed most of it. Not all. But most. One afternoon, we found the funeral program drafts in Mom's desk. My original obituary. Denise's edited version. Mom had marked Denise's with red pen. Put library back. Mention grandchildren. Elaine wrote this. Stop polishing my life like silver. I laughed first. Denise stared. Then laughed too. Not comfortably. But genuinely. Mom was savage, she said. Yes. She hid it better when we were kids. No, we just weren't the targets yet. Denise smiled sadly. True. Repair began in ugly little moments. Not hugs. Not dramatic forgiveness. Tasks. Truth. Shared exhaustion. Boxes. Laughter that hurt. One day, Denise showed up at my townhouse with groceries. I frowned. What is this? You always brought Mom soup after appointments. I know. I thought maybe someone should bring you something. I stared at her. She shifted. I got the good bread. I cried. She panicked. I can leave it on the porch. No, I said. Come in. We ate soup at my kitchen table. For once, Denise did not talk much. That helped. I used part of Mom's savings account for rest. I obeyed her. At first, I tried to pay off a small debt. Then I heard her voice. Not bills. Not Denise. Rest. So I booked a 2-week stay at a quiet cottage near Lake Michigan in October. Alone. No agenda. No hospital bag. No pill chart. No one needing me to cut their food small or call the pharmacy. I slept. I walked. I read 3 novels. I ate breakfast slowly. The first morning, I woke at 6 and panicked because I had overslept. Then remembered no one was waiting. I cried for 20 minutes. Then went back to sleep. That was rest too. On the last day, I scattered a small handful of Mom's ashes in the lake, with permission from the place and a private prayer. Most of her ashes were with Dad, but she had asked me to take a pinch somewhere pretty where no one asks me if I want more Jell-O. Lake Michigan seemed appropriate. I said, "You were right about the seating." The wind nearly took the little paper packet from my hand. I laughed. "You were right about most things." When I returned, Denise asked about the trip. I told her. She said, "I'm glad you went." Then, after a moment, "I'm sorry I never gave you that kind of break." I looked at her. "Thank you." I think I didn't offer because if I did one weekend, I'd have to admit I should have done more. That was honest. I respected it. The house sold in spring. At closing, Denise and I sat beside each other, signing papers. The buyers were a young couple expecting a baby. They loved the garden. The woman said she could imagine children running through the hallway. I thought of Mom, Dad, Denise and me as girls, the hospital bed in the front room, the yellow legal pad, the cat complaining in every room. A house can hold many lives and still become someone else's beginning. After closing, Denise and I stood outside by our cars. She said, "Mom would like them." Yes. "Do you think she forgives me?" I looked at my sister. "I think Mom told the truth so you could become someone who didn't need the old story." Denise cried, "I'm trying. I can see that." That was the first time I said it. Her face crumpled, we hugged. Not long, not perfectly, but honestly. The final lesson is not that the caregiver deserves every inheritance, or that absent family members feel nothing. Grief is complicated. People fail for many reasons: fear, avoidance, selfishness, shame, incapacity, old patterns. But love that never arrives to do hard things should not be allowed to sit in the front row and rename itself sacrifice. Care work counts. Hospital nights count. Medication charts count. Insurance calls count. Cleaning bathrooms counts. Feeding cats counts. Sitting beside someone when breathing becomes work counts. My sister put me in the back row at Mom's funeral. Then the pastor read Mom's letter to me first. And with one envelope, my mother gave back what years of quiet caregiving had slowly taken from me. My place. My name. My witness. I was not the dramatic daughter. I was not the bitter daughter. I was not the one making things difficult. I was the one who stayed. And Mom knew. Thank you for staying with me through this story. I know some of you have been the caregiver in the background, the one who handled pills, appointments, showers, forms, meals, bills, hospital chairs, and final breaths, while someone else showed up for photos and praise. If Elaine's story reached you, I hope you remember that invisible care is still real care. Keep the notes, keep the messages, keep the appointment lists, keep your own heart from believing that being unseen means being unimportant. And if someone seats you in the back after you carried the hardest years, may the truth find a voice strong enough to call you forward. Subscribe to Ultimate Revenge for more stories about quiet women, family betrayal, silent comebacks, and the moment one final letter changes the room. So tell me, if your sister seated you in the back row at your mother's funeral after you were the one who cared for her for years, would you stay quiet for the sake of peace, or would you let Mom's letter tell everyone who really stayed?